I'm Heather Zykowski, the babe with the power, and coming up next on WAYO LP Rochester is The Sound of Tomorrow, where we're going to be talking about the new word of the year. We're going to be talking about some fake news. You know how we love fake news. And we are going to be talking about weird sentences, and most likely speaking in weird sentences, because we are both cold and tired. But first...
Whoa, Heather, is everything okay? You look mad.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Just give me a minute to settle down and I'll be fine.
Well, what happened? I mean, do you want to talk about it?
Oh, thanks. It's nothing really. Just remember how happy I was with my new guy?
Mothman?
Yeah, Mothman. He's a freaking creep.
Oh no! You seem so happy with him.
I was, but thank goodness I had to book out my appointment to have Mothman tattooed in a heart on my bicep because, yeah, it turns out he's a real creep.
Wow, I am so sorry. What happened?
Well, the long and short of it is, you know how he really got off on scaring teen couples necking in their cars on Lover's Lane?
He what? And where's Lover's Lane? Is that a thing?
Yeah, like early on when I first started meeting him in the woods.
Highland Park, okay, if I remember correctly, which is not technically the woods.
Yeah, Highland Park, and they have trees there, so it's about as woodsy as I get. I am very urban, you know?
I do know that, as does anyone who has ever spoken with you for more than 5 minutes, but fine, okay, the woods.
Okay, so when he and I first met, he told me this, that one of his things was scaring necking teens. And you know what? That wasn't cool with me. So we had what I thought was an honest and mature conversation about him and not doing that anymore. But then, get this. Remember when I was away for that wedding in North Carolina? Turns out, the entire weekend, guess who was at it again?
Oh, your ex?
That was actually rhetorical.
Oh, okay. Yes, I do see that now. Yeah.
The whole weekend, car after car full of necking teens. He just scared the pants right off of him or back onto him as they fled, to state it more precisely.
Oh, that's terrible. I am so sorry.
And remember how I told you he gave me that book all about him for my birthday and it was so cutely inscribed with hearts and everything?
No, I didn't know that.
I held it up on camera for you to see and everything.
Yeah, I can only pay attention to what you're doing and saying for so long.
Fair.
So, yeah. There's a book about him, though.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like, he's really famous for being a jerk.
I mean, if nothing else, that seems a little egotistical.
I mean, if there were a book about me, I'd give it to everyone too, though.
Yes, a little egotistical.
But so, I was reading the book and I learned that another one of his things is he especially likes to scare menstruating women. Nice, huh?
Huh. Well, I mean, he really is a creep. And also not smart. I've seen you when you're having your period, and the last thing I would try to do is scare you during your special, woman time of the month. Women power, go girls.
Right. So, and thank you for that. Girl power.
Right.
So I found out about that and some other stuff. And I mean, with the total breach of trust about the necking teens, I just couldn't. I didn't even want to try to make it work anymore. I don't even know what I saw in that guy in first place.
He's tall. You like tall.
I do like tall, but that's not enough.
Well, I'm sorry. I know breakups are hard, but I don't know if I should tell you this.
No, thank you. And it's okay. Tell me.
We all hated him.
Oh, no.
Every party, he just kind of loomed around, glowing his eyes at us and trying to show off by flying. But Heather, he doesn't even flap his wings when he flies. Why have wings if you don't flap your wings?
Right. What a jerk. He doesn't even flap his wings when I know for a fact he could.
Sarah especially hated him.
Well, don't you worry, because you won't be seeing him around our parties anymore. Good riddance. But, Ross, I do have some good news.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna just be single and work on yourself for a while?
No, why?
Oh, because...
No, as I was leaving the woods...
Highland Park.
Yes,
surrounded by roads on all sides, yeah.
The park. As I was leaving, I think I met someone new. This guy, Ross, He's tall, dark, and handsome. Hubba hubba. He's got a great smile, hot car and everything. Snazzy dresser, too. He really seems to speak inside my mind. It's so weird. I think there's a real connection there.
Tall, dark, handsome, nice car, not bad for a start. Do I know him? What's his name?
Indrid Cold? We're going for coffee tomorrow. I'm pretty excited. I've got the first date jitters.
Oh, Heather.
Oh, Indrid Cold.
So stupid.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Not
what do
me.
you think I'm gonna say? Like, oh, that was the best thing I ever wrote.
Not me. I mean, you're stupid. I'm very smart.
You are. It's true. You always have been.
Oh, I love it. Hey, everybody. I'm Ross Johnson, your favorite co-host.
And I'm Heather Zykowski, the babe with the power. Welcome back to the Sound of Tomorrow on WAYOLP Rochester.
We're here to tell you that the sounds you listen to are the sounds of tomorrow, and what you hear tomorrow is what you're listening to today. That's how we on the Sound of Tomorrow.
That's exactly our tagline. We have a t-shirt. You can, if you want more information about that, drop us a line at jimmyspaceboat@gmail.com. It the print kind of just goes all around it, like around the sleeves and the shoulders and around the back and stuff, because it's such a long slogan.
And unfortunately it's $40 because they charge by the letter, but you got to get you one.
Ross, just that's like what we pay to have them made. We're going to mark them up to 65. So
sorry. Yeah. 65 is what I meant to say.
Yeah. Or maybe a little higher. Don't worry. I'll handle the pricing. Just don't keep it down.
Thank you. Anything I don't have to deal with. So go for it.
Yeah. Don't you worry.
Heather.
How are you? Yeah. Tell me.
I'm freaking great. I'm just fine. I'm just Jim freaking dandy.
Sure. Why wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
Come on. It's like 40 degrees out.
It's not bad. Even that. Is it?
Oh, I thought it was when I was driving home.
I'm going to look right now. Happy Hanukkah, everyone, today. By the way.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah, it is 34. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you have every right to be miserable. I didn't know the temperature dropped like that.
There's a new word of the year just dropped, Heather.
Whoa!
Last year, of course, the word of the I'm going to let you try to guess what the word of the year is, because you might figure it out. I'll give you a hint.
Cat.
In 2020,
the word of the year is cat.
No.
Feline. The word of the year is feline.
Stupid.
That's the word of you.
That's your word of the year.
That's yours.
Your word of the year.
Nigel.
Okay, in 2020,
yes,
the Merriam-Webster dictionary selected pandemic as its word of the year.
Wow, of course.
Yeah. Any guesses as to any sincere guesses?
Yeah.
Because we don't have time for your nonsense. We only have an hour.
No, people only tune in for our nonsense.
They tune in for my nonsense. Your nonsense is frankly a little more tiresome than mine. It's 20% more tiresome than mine.
It's just because I'm a woman.
Searches for this word, which we have not guessed yet, were up more than 600% from last year, Heather.
Yeah.
It was
can I tell you, I think I have seen something about what this is, so I might have an edge. This might not be a pure guess.
I bet you still don't get it right, but go ahead.
Vaccine?
Yeah, vaccine is the word of the year.
You forget we read the same news sources a lot of the time.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to stop. I was going to say it's hard to stump you, but I don't know if that's true.
Very easy to stump me.
Yeah. So vaccine is the Merriam-Webster word of the year based on the data of searches for the word vaccine, which is interesting. I guess that's all the people do. You hear about people, doing their own research. So I guess they looked up the word vaccine in the dictionary. I guess that's what they meant by that. Actually, I think usually they mean there's a Facebook meme from their uncle, but I guess if you're a little more scientifically literate or knowledgeable, doing your own research is maybe you look up the word vaccine in the dictionary. It's sort of funny. It's interesting. Like it's because if the word were like firmament,
Uh-huh.
and the word searches for the word firmament were way up, that would be weird. I guess that the
Yes.
searches, but I would understand why people would be looking up the word firmament.
Right, because
Um,
it's one of those weird words that doesn't make a lot of sense and you kind of have a concept of what it means, but what's the dictionary definition?
yeah. So so it's interesting to me that a lot of people were going to the dictionary looking up the word vaccine because you would think, I guess, if I didn't know what a vaccine was at all, I don't know. I feel like everybody kind of knows what a vaccine is. So I feel like everybody is people who, whatever your stance on vaccines is, whether it's
Mhm.
smart and they're good, or whether it's stupid, you have a sense of what they are. And I feel like we're past the beginner level of looking it up in the dictionary, but maybe not. I don't know.
So, I wonder how many of these people were looking it up to say to their relatives. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. While you're looking it up,
Yeah.
there is a change to the definition of
Oh.
vaccine because of the mRNA vaccines. Um, they sort of work a little different. They don't really work differently than traditional vaccines, but they have sort of a different origin than
Ah,
traditional vaccines. So the
yes.
definition. Oh, go ahead.
I see that they've added mRNA vaccine
Yeah.
information to the
So
definition of vaccine. Is that the change?
Yeah. So the definition used to be a preparation of killed microorganisms, living attenuated organisms, or living fully virulent organisms that is administered to produce or artificially increase immunity to a particular disease. And the full definition with all the different variations is, I'm not going to read it
Mhm.
because it's long
It's
and
very
boring, but
long.
the breakdown is obviously, if you're saying that it's a preparation of killed microorganisms, attenuated organisms, or living virulent organisms, obviously mRNA is none of those things.
Right.
So a change in the definition I think was called for. So
Yeah.
now it's just now the basic one, and then there are little sub things, but a preparation that is administered as by injection to stimulate the body's immune response against a specific infectious agent or disease. Blah blah blah.
Well, and I wonder how many people were looking it up to go, Mom, a vaccine is not a government conspiracy. A vaccine is a preparation to, listen, it's in the dictionary. Look, here it is in the dictionary.
You think mom's going to be swayed by the dictionary?
Um,
Like,
Sometimes I feel like lately we've realized that we like to jump on the logic train. It may or may not make a difference because we can't always get everybody else on the logic train. But I do wonder if that would be a move that somebody who wants to try to logic things out and actually see maybe fact and reason might try to do.
sorry, there's like a there's some sort of military helicopter flying several like half like a like 6 feet above my house right now. So I'm a
They
little concerned
finally
that
found you.
Marines are going to drop from the sky, and I assume Marines would be the ones that would come. I don't know.
That would take down the SOT. Yeah.
Right. It would have to be the Marines. Only the Marines are, they're
Only
the
the
only ones
Marines are
tough enough
equipped
to
to
do
do
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, but
So that I do wonder how many people were looking it up just so that they could have the dictionary definition at hand so
yeah,
that when their relatives were like, "Well, what is a vaccine anyway?"
who's
they
ever
could
even
go
heard
like,
of this?
"Well, because people honestly, when there was talk of developing a COVID vaccine and then it was rolled out, seriously, I even knew people who were acting like they'd never heard of a vaccine. What was this deadly poison that the government was forcing on people? And I'm like, did you go to public schools? Because if
Which
you did, you've had a lot of these.
you've had a lot of these, and what gets me, what's interesting that I have to I keep reminding myself just because it makes me chuckle at people who are like, "What is a vaccine?" It gives me something else to feel superior about. So, germ theory. hand washing in medicine, that's like late 1800s. We've had vaccines in this country since like 1760, I want to say. So it's
Yeah.
not. It's. I mean, so vaccines predate hand washing as a medical thing, and the technology goes. That's just in the United States. The technology goes. As we've talked about, this is
Yes.
something that at least in America came from Africa as something that people were doing there. So who knows how long people in Africa were doing it before that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this is why with when you hear about healthcare professionals, some of the nurses perhaps who are like, well, I'm refusing this vaccine mandate because I don't know what's in it. I don't believe in it. It's like, what else don't you believe in?
I
Because
know.
again, this is older than hand washing.
Yeah. And it really, it just occurred to me. I wonder if people don't understand what they're getting when they get their flu shot or their
Yeah.
tetanus shot. Like, do they not get that that's a vaccine because it's referred to as, oh, I got to get my flu shot?
Yeah. Or a
Like,
hot
maybe we
dog. I
should have
mean, I
called it
don't,
the COVID shot.
I don't know. I mean, and my mom said something astute, and, and I wasn't quite sure what she was saying when she said this. It sounded almost because my mom's a little hard to pin down sometimes, and I think she was almost defending people who she's very pro vaccine. She's very pro people getting the vaccine. She kind of thinks people who aren't getting the vaccine are, well, we'll say dumb and selfish,
Sure.
outside of having very good medical reasons or anything like that. But she said, and again, I think she was saying this in defense of people not getting the vaccine, but it was interesting to me. And I think it was sort of astute. She was like, people don't like the government telling them what to do. And I think there is really something there. And that's, I mean, from my mouth, that's not a defense. I mean, for someone to say like, oh, you should, hey, you're dying of thirst. Here's some, I've brought you some water. You should drink this water. And you not drinking the water and dying just to spite me because you don't like being told what to do. That is like the stupidest thing I can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't jump off that bridge. It's going to kill you. Well, I don't like being told what to do, so you jump off the bridge. I
Right.
mean, the whole, and you see that even among like politicians and stuff where they're like, well, I'm not doing it just because the dumb liberals told me to do it, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, is it a good idea or not? Like, if it's a good
Yeah.
idea, I don't care who's suggesting it. If it's a bad
Hmm.
idea, I, then when it comes down to it, is getting the vaccine a good thing or not? Whether Joe Biden told you to or Donald Trump told you not to, is it a good idea or not?
But, the government tells us what to do all the time
Kind of a lot.
in all kinds of ways. New York State government says that we need insurance to drive a car legally. And we will be punished if we don't have insurance and we're driving around in the car.
Yeah, but a lot of
Like,
people also would rather they didn't. So I mean,
but
but
still, we do it because we'll be punished otherwise.
but
We have to wear
something.
seat belts. Do you remember this? Maybe we've talked about this on this program. And
Well,
if
but
we have, I'm
remember, no
sorry.
people aren't getting
Do you,
punished for not getting the vaccine.
sorry?
But remember, people aren't getting punished. I'm not saying
Well,
I'm
that's the
not like
thing.
poo
Not
pooing your
yet.
example,
Not
but like,
yet.
or at all.
But the
I mean,
government tells us stuff to do all the time. But okay, do you remember when the seatbelt laws changed?
no,
Were you in New York yet? You
I
might
don't.
not
I,
have
I,
been.
I don't know what the.
I was pretty young. So when I was a kid, you didn't need to wear a seatbelt in the car at all. You
Okay,
could just roll around that car all day long. Didn't
sure.
matter. You could wear one if you wanted to, like if you were, a sucker or something. Like if you were weak, you could wear one. So when in New York State, and I remember this, the law was changed that you had to buckle up and everybody had to buckle up in the car. Well, in the front seat. You still don't have to wear one in the back. I don't think that's the law. But in the front, you have to wear one. People lost their minds. People were infuriated that the government was telling them to wear seatbelts. And that was one that was backed up with a fine.
Mhm.
But that's another one where the government wasn't doing it to put their seatbelts on our bodies. It was doing it because seatbelts actually save lives during car crashes.
True. True.
But people were angry and resistant, and there were all these like tips and tricks for how to not wear your seatbelt, but look like you were wearing your seatbelt so that the cops wouldn't see that you weren't wearing your seatbelt. And there's a huge resistance toward it.
true. I mean, I guess the only the distinction I would make there is that those are laws that you get punished for.
Hmm.
Getting the vaccine is a suggestion. I
It
mean, there
is,
are
yeah.
certain circumstances where usually with employers or whatever, there are certain circumstances where you have to get the vaccine or you can't do such and such, right? But you're not going to get fined. You're not going to go to jail. There's no force of law even behind it. So this like this civil, and there have been bad laws before. There have certainly been laws that weren't good. So, but this like civil resistance to a suggestion
I know. But
is 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 extra. It would be funny if it weren't so deadly and devastating.
yeah.
I mean, because if you're saying I don't think it's fair that I should get a fine for not wearing a seatbelt, it's my choice. All right, I don't agree with you, but that doesn't really impact me. So I guess I don't know. Whatever. Do it. Wear your seatbelt. Don't wear your seatbelt. It doesn't impact me. It's a good idea, and it is the law, so you should do it. But you know, but this is a suggestion that people have taken
Yeah.
to like civil disobedience about a suggestion
But people are, it seems to me like people are reacting more strongly to things
in general. Yeah.
in general these days. So I have to admit, the ranting and raving about the government can't make me do it, the government can't tell me what to do. When you're right, it's a suggestion, it's a guideline,
And you're like, the
it's a
government's not.
request. Right. But that's again, I think, trying to jump on that logic train. And that's not where this
No, you're
is
right.
coming from. This is
You're
not
right.
on the train that goes like, it's a suggestion. Nobody's trying to force you.
There is a psychology here that's interesting. I mean, we talk about the logic train in terms of, we try to logic through like racist things like the book bannings
Yeah.
and things like that.
Right.
Um, this seems like a different psychology, even though it's a lot of the same people. I,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know. I
and I
mean,
don't know what this is. It's
some of
different than the racism thing, though. I think there's a vast overlap between the people who share these attitudes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it has a little bit of a DNA with, because you see all the stuff about like we've seen stuff for I'd say decades, like my entire life, like, well, kids are not allowed to, the government won't let you pray in school anymore, and it's terrible. And it's like, well, okay, they're actually you can pray in school, and people have gone to court to defend that right. You just can't force children to pray a particular way, which
Yeah.
is what you want. So I mean, it does seem to have a DNA with that kind of oppression. Like I haven't, I'm a I'm oppressed because I can't make other people do something I want them to do. Um, it seems to have that kind of silliness baked into it of with the vaccine. I'm oppressed because you're suggesting that I get this vaccine. That's a really good idea, but I'm not going to do it just because you suggested it.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah. I
and it's a weird thing too. It's a weird the I know this is a bigger thing. It's weird with the whole I also don't understand Donald Trump on this. I don't understand Donald Trump on a lot of things, but like Donald Trump was the president during this when this started. Did a pretty poor job as far as I'm concerned.
yes,
But
that's kind of you.
but but this vaccine was produced under Donald Trump's watch. Um,
Not
you
literal
know,
watch, don't worry.
correct. I mean, but the for all the ways that he helped and then hindered that process, it was produced under his watch as president.
Yes.
So to me, um, to me, I'm thinking if I'm Donald Trump, I'm going, hey, great, I made this vaccine. I made this vaccine is kind of how Donald Trump talks anyway.
You're
I made this
right.
vaccine, so everybody should go get this vaccine. So it's weird to me. That is interesting too. I mean, that almost seems just like anarchist in the sense of like, okay, I could, this vaccine came out under my watch. I could take credit for it, like I take credit for everything else. Tell people to go get it, and it's great, and I won. I saved the planet. Here we go. Instead, it became this wishy-washy, like, oh, don't let them force you to get it. The vaccine I made, which is really good, this vaccine I made, but don't let them force you. It's bad. It's good. You should get it, but don't get it if you don't want to, because they're going to try to make you get it, but don't get it. This weird, muddled, nonsensical message that really slowed things down and put that seed of like, well, I'm not going to in a lot of people's heads. I don't understand the logic behind that either. Like, I don't understand. Again, if I'm Donald Trump, trying to put myself in that mind space, I'm going,
Mm-hmm.
I made this vaccine. Here's the vaccine. Take the vaccine. We'll stop the pandemic. And there we go. Good job. Look at what I did. I saved the world.
Yeah.
Instead, it's
That
this like, I made this. Instead, the message is like, I made this vaccine, but don't take it. It's bad because the liberals want you to take it.
you know, I my knee-jerk reaction is that is absolutely deliberately designed to sow discord and to reach his base and agitate them.
I guess, but
But when you bring up, when you brought up like
you're
his
right.
megalomania,
Hmm.
so I do wonder how much his desire to rile up his base and reach them does conflict with his megalomania because everything he does is the greatest and the
Yeah.
best and it's huge. And really this vaccine is pretty huge.
Yeah.
Like genuinely. Everybody loves it.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Trump's vaccine
Yeah.
except his base that he told like you're right. And why don't they love it? Because it is from his administration.
It's
Maybe it's because he only developed it, but it's Biden's administration going like, yeah, this is a really good idea. It's very effective, and we super recommend that people get it.
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a, it seemed very, even at the time when he was running for reelection, on this very mixed message of like, this very confused message about COVID. I feel like it was politically stupid. And I guess I should be grateful in the sense that I think that probably lost him the election. If he had a coherent message on COVID, no matter how BSy it was, um, I think he probably could have won re-election, which would have, let's not delve into that. But
Yeah. No,
let's
I
not.
I honestly wasn't sure which way it was going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
mean, it wasn't, it wasn't,
I
the,
wasn't confident that there wasn't going to be a Trump 2020 win.
yeah, well, that's it. I mean, Joe Biden won fairly decisively, but it wasn't so overwhelming that it couldn't have flopped, couldn't have flopped another way given,
Mhm.
a few extra points here or there, or a few extra people showing up to the polls or not showing up to the polls.
Yep.
These no modern presidential election has been, a blowout. So,
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think next year's word of the year will be?
apocalypse.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would track. That would track very well.
Yeah. Is is planet death. That's not a word, I guess, but
I mean, maybe it would be like hyphenated or something.
sure. Absolutely.
So, speaking of words, Ross, you like words. I like words. Are you still doing any foreign language learning apps?
I'm ambivalent, frankly, on words, but sure, we'll
I
pretend.
think you like them.
I'm not currently. I'm not studying anything at the moment. I was doing Latin, I of course,
Yeah, you
as we've talked about before,
dabble.
I only like really, I'm not into this esoteric sort of stuff. I like really concrete things that I can put to use in day-to-day life. So for so I was doing Latin on Duolingo, and then I was doing um various dialects of Middle English via some online courses. But
That's
you know,
right.
yeah. So, but no, at the moment, I've sort of fallen out of both of those.
All right.
Not
Well,
forever, but
I think as I announced several years ago now, I was going to start doing Duolingo for Spanish.
yeah.
And I am still doing Duolingo for Spanish. I did lose my streak last year because I forgot a day, but at the moment I'm on my 558th day streak.
Wow. How much would
So
it be if you hadn't lost your day?
add another 600 to that, it would be somewhere 1100 something.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
They should spot
Yeah.
you a day.
I know. I didn't have a streak freeze though. And I legit like
Do
I
you have to
was
pay the
busy.
99 cents for that or whatever?
No, you get like points for playing every day.
Oh,
And so
okay.
then you spend the points to get the thing.
Yeah.
Because they gamify it to keep it fun.
Sure.
Uh, but I like it. It's just my silly little Spanish lesson of the day. I feel like it can't possibly be bad for my brain.
So when are you going to be done with Spanish? When are you going to have learned it all?
Never.
Oh, okay.
But I saw an article on Slate today that I thought was really interesting. And it's by Jane C. Hugh, and it's entitled, Why Are Duolingo's Sentences So Weird? And I've found this. Duolingo sometimes throws you a weird thing. Like, one that really got me was it made me nervous when she brought me a dead rat. And I was like, what? I don't, that's weird. But I just figured, like, I don't know. There's probably no reason at all. And they have some good art, good instances in this article. So I just want to read them. Um, some of the lines are, he is handsome, but not a good person. There's, there are too many people here.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
That's
there's
legit.
he drank 3 bottles of Baijiu and he is sleeping now. Or I have 1,500 cat photos on my phone. There's a couple other that were taken from people who posted them online. The bride is a woman and the groom is a hedgehog. The man eats ice cream with mustard. And my favorite, I am eating bread and crying on the floor.
Oh,
So
that
like
is
you're
that's
doing
not a
your
weird sentence, but all
Duolingo.
right.
I know, right? Um, and you get these weird sentences. And another thing I noticed about Duo is it's really like queer friendly.
Okay. That's good.
Like when there are couples going out on a date, or like when the voice is talking about their husband, it does not matter. They'll have like a guy sounding voice talking about his husband. They'll have a lady talking voice talking about her wife. It's it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
But so I found out that this is actually somewhat deliberate, that Duo has these weird sentence structures. And so the writer of this article went straight to the source, who is Cindy Blanco, a learning scientist at Duolingo, who explained
Linda
that
Duo.
Cindy Blanco, who is a learning scientist at Duolingo, she explained that the company's content is generated by language specific teams, each of which has their own quirks. Lessons in Norwegian and Swedish, for instance, often include references to 90s grunge music. Some teams have always enjoyed sneaking in weird or funny sayings, but over time, course creators made an explicit decision to include them on the theory that weird sentences have the potential to boost learning. When asked how that would work, Blanco explained that people often learn best when there's a mismatch between what they expect and what they actually encounter. She's quoted as saying, when there's a conflict between your expectation and the reality, that triggers responses in the brain. It forces you to attend more carefully to what you're seeing. For
That
example, when you see a sentence like, the bride is a woman and the groom is a, your brain is most likely filled in the word man. So when Duolingo uses hedgehog, it's a surprise, and like it makes you pay just a little extra attention.
that makes sense.
It really did make a lot of sense. And Sam Dalsimer, who is Duolingo's global head of communications, said that the approach is based on some research conducted by a team of psychologists from Ghent University in Belgium. So the author got in touch with one of those authors, the author of the paper on this research, Tom Vergatz. And Vergatz had no idea that Duolingo was using his research at all, but he was like, cool, yeah, I mean, that might work.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, and I think there's probably a sweet. I'd guess there's probably a sweet spot between like
There is.
complete nonsense
There
is
is.
gonna. Oh,
Yeah, they absolutely bring that up right here. So silly or funny sentences are unexpected that could play a similar role in language learning, but wildly erratic sentences, what linguists would call semantically unpredictable sentences, are usually just absurd, like the table walked through the blue truth. And that's not going to really help because that's just going to make you go, huh?
yeah,
You need it to be just a little funny
like a little
or
surprising.
a little weird. Like, oh, it made me nervous when she brought me a dead rat.
Mhm.
Like that you can understand because maybe you were thinking it made me nervous when she brought me flowers.
Yeah,
But yeah, if it's just log, lamp, shelf, lamp, that's like what? I don't.
yeah. I mean, I think you can. I think you can lose interest in. You can lose interest in the nonsense because there's nothing surprising about a nonsense sentence. It's just like this is going to be a nonsense sentence, and I guess all these are
Yep.
nonsense sentences. Where a normal sentence that takes a turn,
Yep.
that's like a little story that goes in a weird direction. All of a sudden, you're like, hey, wait a minute, I thought this story was boring, but now something interesting
Yep.
happened.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it does have to be something that surprises your brain instead of just might roll past your brain because it doesn't make any sense. So why bother?
Yeah.
And then there's also the theory from Duolingo that if they do put in something kind of funny, that will make people learn better. And to the linguist that they interviewed, to his knowledge, there aren't any studies directly looking at whether playfulness or humor can boost learning. But there were some studies from language teachers working in a classroom. Nicole Halliday was consulted about it. And they haven't really delved into the link between learning and humor because humor is subjective.
Hmm.
But the thing I'm thinking, and I think they do point this out in the article, with Duolingo trying to be kind of funny, it probably keeps people a little bit more engaged, which in the end run, as much as Duolingo wants to like teach people languages, in the end, Duolingo wants to show us those ads when we're using the free version or have us pay for premium.
Yeah.
So the more people who are on there who are paying for it, anything the app can do to kind of hook people in, I think it would want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another one of those areas where there's sort of a sweet spot. Like if you're being too funny or using too much humor all the time, it can sort of cut into your credibility as a legitimate learning resource. But if
Mm-hmm.
you use it, if you don't use any, then it's like, okay, this is a slog. This is boring. I don't want to be on this app. It's not like a thing,
Yep.
especially with a free app. You can
Yeah.
upgrade, of course, but especially with a free app, it's not like a very serious learning course that you paid for and you're going to get through no matter what, or it's something you have to
Mm-hmm.
do for work. It's usually like an optional thing. So to make it, to try to make it a little more fun and engaging. And I think anything that helps keep your attention and helps keep things from being boring is a benefit to learning. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. I'm all for it. I'm all for the gamifying. I'm I'm there for it. I don't like I said, I don't really see how Duolingo could be hurting my brain.
Yeah,
It's kind of fun. I like it.
I
But
like it.
the article does end with a nice closer of, and let's be real. Given the state of the world, it might be worth knowing how to say I am eating bread and crying on the floor in multiple languages.
Absolutely.
So I just thought that was a little fun. I have done my Duolingo for the day, but maybe I'll do an extra lesson tonight in honor of that article.
And I maybe inspired by you, I will work on my Middle English inflection
Ooh, I love it.
later.
You'll be like quadlingual. I'll be bilingual.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely a dabbler. I wish I had more. I wish I either had one of those brains where I could just pick up every language and it would be
Yeah.
great, or that I could stick to something. But instead, it's like, oh, I can, oh, I can do some. I will do some. I can do some random survival German and French and American Sign Language and Middle English if that ever comes up. So I don't know. We'll see. And a little bit of
Yeah,
Latin. I don't know, but it's, you know,
I could probably do random survival Spanish. I enough to like if I had to let somebody know something, I could
mm,
probably figure out how to tell them in Spanish. What I really want, and I keep ending up having conversations with people where it's like, yeah, we'll be Spanish speaking buddies, but it never happens. I get shy when it's time to speak to anything other than the app.
yeah.
And what I really need now is either a native speaker or someone who's learning like I am. And we just jump on a Zoom like once a week and only speak Spanish.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I mean, I think the problem with any app or learning resources, it doesn't have that immediacy of like I just think I think it's really hard or impossible to learn a language without actually using it in a real life kind of context,
Yeah,
you know? So that's to really get it down, and I think you get it down a lot faster, but
you do. Because I picked it up way quicker when I was in school. Admittedly, I was a lot younger, but it was also every day for 45 minutes. And when I got a little more advanced, the teacher had this great rule that we were allowed to speak in class as long as we spoke in Spanish.
okay.
So obviously, my friends and I learned as much Spanish as we could so that we could talk about the bands and the boys and everything that we wanted to talk about.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think there's nothing like, you know, being in the situation. I mean, I think the ideal thing is probably like having a little bit of a backing and then, you know, having somebody drop you off in Spain or
I know.
Mexico City, you know, and then like just
Yeah.
being like figure it out. You know, I think that's probably
Well,
the ideal scenario, but
yeah, and that's the thing too, because what I'm doing through Duo is like European Spanish.
oh, okay.
And so I would have a more difficult time, I think, where I'd go to Mexico, for example, because the dialects are so different.
Right.
But maybe again, probably with like my really with the basic stuff, like I can order una cerveza. What more do I need?
Right.
Por favor,
I mean, dos
even.
cerveza probably.
Uno más cerveza, por favor.
Yeah.
So so I
So
think
you're
I'm
set.
pretty set. Yeah.
And I'm sure you know how to find them. Ask for the bathroom and that's it. You're good.
Yep, I
You're good
definitely
for the
do.
night.
Donde está el baño?
Heather,
No como carne.
you want to talk about some fake news?
Of course I do.
This was fascinating. There were a couple of articles, and I'll try not to get too heavy with this. There were a couple of articles that were sort of fascinating, and then a little bit of a breakdown of one of them, but I think it applies to both of them of where things have sort of gone wrong. So there's been a so the first I'll do these two sort of news headliney type of stories, and we can and then I'll get to the breakdown a little bit of what's going on here. So there's been this thing, and I've seen a little bit of this, that there have been these huge, you know, these giant these giant spikes in shoplifting in California. Like it's basically like a looter's heaven in California all of a sudden because people are just doing this thing. There was an article in the New York Post, and the headline was "Mobs of looters are grabbing goods in California thanks to downgraded shoplifting laws." So, what happened was a couple years ago, California changed the law so that anything under I think $950 is now a misdemeanor from whatever it was before.
Oh.
So so
Excuse me, I need to go and buy tickets to California.
of course, absolutely. So there have been all these articles about just recently, you know, this has become a shoplifter's paradise and people are crossing the border from other states and running to California just so they can shoplift. I mean, really hyperbolic headlines. And I didn't know much
Wild.
about it. Yeah, well, and I've seen a few of these things and I didn't know much about it. And so I wasn't paying that much attention. I mean, just seeing the headlines, I was like, this seems a little made up. So, so this, so the bottom line with this one is that it turns out there was a piece in the San Francisco Chronicle a couple days ago, um, and basically shoplifting data is really um, is really wonky because most store you know most stores don't report things that happen. So there's no, it's just there are all sorts of reasons. That's one of the main ones. I mean, most incidents don't get reported, or the person gets spotted and it gets dropped, or they think it might have been a shoplifter but they're not sure and they don't know, so they don't report anything. So most of the time, the police don't wind up showing up when there's a shoplifter. So the data is really like, you know there are a few other reasons there, but essentially we just kind of don't know how much shoplifting there really is.
Hmm.
So um so a couple of Target stores, and actually, I guess the bulk of this giant spike in shoplifting in San Francisco was from, so this single Target store added a new system where they automatically, like an automated system where any even potential shoplifting incident was automatically reported to the police.
Got it.
So literally, these articles about these giant spikes in shoplifting in California and the looters taking over these stores, and just, people building cities in the Walmart where they can just take the stuff and then live in their little tent cities. Literally, it was most of the data, most of the numbers. They were basically extrapolating from raw numbers. Most of those numbers came from one single Target store that started that changed the way that basically changed their reporting system. So no evidence whatsoever of any change at all in shoplifting patterns, because we don't know before, and we also don't know that the new system, we also don't know how accurate the new system of automatically reporting anything that even could remotely possibly be a shoplifting thing. We don't That's brand new, right? So we don't know how much shoplifting there was before. We don't really know how much shoplifting there was now. There's no evidence that a single thing has changed.
Oh my gosh.
Um, so that's one. And then there's another one, and then, like I said, there was the good little breakdown of what happens with these news stories. So this was a so there was a headline from the New York Times just like a day or two ago. After murders, quote, doubled overnight, the NYPD is solving fewer cases. In the Bronx, where the percentage of murders solved by the police has plunged, one family is waiting impatiently for a day that may not come. So the headline again is, after murders, quote, doubled overnight, the NYPD is solving fewer cases. Um, and I guess I guess I'll spoil this and say murders have not doubled in New York.
Yeah,
Um,
that seemed improbable.
yeah. So the article talks to police resources, pretty much nobody else. Police sources, pretty much nobody else. The article gets to, there is a recent change in rules, as far as, I think this involves federal cases, and it basically has to do with the police have to provide more information to defense attorneys and public defenders than they used to.
Okay.
So this whole thing is about how, the takeaway of this article, as intended, was murders have doubled in New York City because of this new law about how public defenders have to get more information from the police than they used to. Which is already, you're thinking like, is that really true? So um, so just to break this one down a tiny bit, and then there's sort of a unified theory of this type of thing. So this is from a civil rights organizer named Alec Karakat Karakatsanis. Karakatsanis. He's talking about this. So mentions that the words doubled overnight are in quotes in the headline, which is interesting right there. He says that's a signal that they aren't reporting a verified fact, they're reporting a quote from a source.
Uh-huh.
The source turns out to be a former cop. So when you dig deeper, we discover that once you get past this headline of murders having doubled overnight, you learn that it's not murders that doubled overnight. It's caseloads
Oh.
that
Well,
doubled
that's very different.
doubled overnight. Goes on to say that it isn't true that caseloads literally doubled overnight. There's no opposing, they didn't get any opposing source or anything over that. Um, so what seems to have happened, what seems to be happening is in New York City, um, police are frequently moved away from major crimes into the sorts of, low level drug arrests, the clearing the homeless. I mean, not all that sort of stuff, but some of that sort of stuff. There's a lot more, there's more emphasis on minor crimes than major crimes. There are more police dealing with minor crimes than major crimes. And a lot of police get moved off away from major crimes to small, lower level crime with, and the theory being that, if you start if you start with lower level crime, there won't be major crime, whatever. Regardless, so caseloads went up because police were moved off of, because they were, it's like with any workload, you had this much work to do. We've taken some people out to put them on other stuff. So your individual workload goes up.
That's how workloads work.
Again, in this case, no evidence that there's an increase in murders. In fact, the data that the New York Times has reported elsewhere, so, there's been a trend in a decrease in murders that's sort of been year upon year, more or less, with blips, but there's no evidence of increase in murders. They're certainly not double murders. They're actually kind of lower murders. So this Alakiriketsanis, I'm so sorry. I'm going to keep butchering that. Karakatsanis?
Is it a C or a K?
It's a K. It's Karakatsanis. So if you want to look up this person,
Do what people do with me, like in a lot of situations, and just say K.
There you go. Alec K.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was fascinating. So he got into a little discussion of why these things are happening and the impact. And I think it was really interesting because I guess I've sort of thought of this in some terms, but not so specifically. So we've seen, right? Like we see this all the time. We see this breathless reporting about crime.
Yes.
All the time.
Scaremongering.
Absolutely. Super scaremongering. And it's people deciding what's news and what isn't. Sometimes it's true news but that's very focused in one specific area, so you sort of miss the whole picture. Sometimes, in like the cases we just saw, it's deceptively presented information. Alec K talks about the fact that air pollution kills an estimated 10 million people each year, and does more, causes all sorts of, it literally kills an estimated 10 million people each year, in addition to a whole bunch of other effects. We do not get breathless reporting every day about the however many thousand of people died from air pollution the previous day. We get the crime stories. We get, air and water pollution also kill people, also do a lot of damage. Fraudulent home foreclosures, he mentioned, cause huge death rates. We don't get breathtaking. We don't get breathless coverage about these deaths.
Right.
He says, and this is a quote, a thought experiment. Imagine if every day for the last 25 years, newspaper and TV station had urgent breaking news stories and graphics about the thousands of deaths the night before from air, water pollution, climate change, or poverty. Take the frenzy over retail shoplifting from big corporate stores, which has taken over local national news. Same reporters don't cover the $137 million in corporate wage theft every single day, including by the same companies whose press releases about shoplifting they now quote. This type of thing, it gets people's backs up. It causes politicians to make wild, changes in the laws to combat these things that, may or may not be threats. When you've got something like wage theft, which is more devastating, and Alec K does link to some numbers here, than all other property crime combined. So companies are stealing more wages from people than any other source of theft that goes on anywhere, all combined. fraudulent bank overdraft fees amount to basically the same amount of property theft as all burglary. If you combine burglary, larceny, car theft, and shoplifting, fraudulent bank overdraft fees, like illegal, not the legal ones that are that are obnoxious, but fraudulent, illegally taken ones. Um, you know, this is something the media doesn't report on that. So it was interesting. It was an interesting way to bring all this together and to really think about, for me, the impact of this sort of thing. And this is stuff we've talked about. This was just an interesting summary for me, and a lot of it, a lot of it comes down to corporate interests. An awful lot of it comes down to propaganda. You know, we certainly saw that with the New York. We saw that in the New York Times piece, right? Like nothing
Yep.
but police sources telling us that murders doubled overnight, when actually what happened was some certain police officers had bigger caseloads.
Yeah. Well, and it's something that gets a lot of people all frothed up thinking
Mm-hmm.
about the criminals and how they need to be punished for their crimes. And it also, I think, appeals to that sense that people have of they like to feel like they're better than other people.
True.
I think that's
Absolutely.
part of it too. Like, look at the criminals, they need to go to jail. I am a good person. I
Yeah.
do not shoplift. And that's probably a lot of the appeal for it too. And so then if you look at the media, oh, what sells? What gets the
Yeah.
people clicking? What gets them commenting? What gets everybody's backs up and they've got some stuff to say. Whereas sure, fraudulent overdraft fees, but that's not going to make a person feel like they're so much better than other people.
Yeah. Well, and you know,
And it's not a great human instinct. I think it's in all of us though.
and that's why I don't, people talk about the media doing this to us. I think we do it to ourselves. I think it's the media. I think elements of the media, there are corporate goals, there are, police interest goals. I get it, but as and that's definitely true. But I think ultimately it's exactly like you said. I think it's the media's giving us what we want to buy.
And it behooves the media to give us the things that are going to make us feel like we're good people and like we're better than somebody and get us all frothed up. Because the more we're engaging, the more we're probably seeing the advertisements.
And that's it. I mean, there are things that we need to push the media to do more, but also, yeah, we've got to work on those instincts in ourselves. I think that's the biggest part of it is, being aware of that feeling of superiority that comes when you see, or that thrill that you get when you learn that, people are looting California because some liberals changed some law or whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
there are certainly there it's not just it's certainly not just a conservative phenomenon, so
that's the thing. Yeah,
but
that is interesting, though. You know what else is interesting, Ross?
what else is interesting, Heather?
The fantastic program Music Matters coming up next on WAYO LP Rochester. Thanks for tuning in for the Sound of Tomorrow. And if you want more primo SOT related content, find Ross on Instagram because he has been freaking tearing it up with his playing the dad in holiday movies auditions. And I've been completely loving it. Those are hilarious. So if you want a little treat, go look at Ross on Instagram because he's hilarious. We knew that already.
Well, thank you. That's very sweet.
Oh, and Ross, you might want to get some mothballs. Mothra, Mothman says he's not governed by human law restraining orders. Grandiose jerk that he is. But those should keep him away.
You know what? That reminds me of an old joke. You ever seen Mothballs?
Is it a movie?
Okay. Have you ever seen Mothballs?
What? Like, is it a TV show?
Have you ever seen Mothballs?
E- is it a musical?
Okay, never mind. I'm tired.
Oh,
Every time. Exhausting.